Hello, everyone. Welcome to Game Center Live. Game Center Live is our weekly show here at NYU Game Center, which is the Department of Game Design at NYU, New York University. Today is our last show of the spring 2020 semester. So we're going to make it a special one for today. Today we're going to talk a little bit about our end of semester showcase, where we're going to do a 6-hour marathon stream on May 21st, 2020. Please pray for me. It'll be 6 hours. Then we're also going to showcase a little bit of some of the streaming that our students are doing and encourage you to support them and their performance and broadcasts. And then we'll close out. The majority of this broadcast will be our usual segment, The Discourse, where Naomi Clark and Fran, both full-time faculty here at Game Center, will talk about the game industry news of the past week and tell you what all the intelligent hot takes are. So first, let's seg over to over here. Say hello, Frank and Naomi.
Hey.
Hey
Hello,
there.
Frank and Naomi. How's it going, Stream Papa?
Very good joke, Frank. So first,
you.
I'll just be the voice of God a little bit here and just talk a little bit about our plans here. So again, as I mentioned before, on May 21st, we are going to do our NYU Game Center showcase because we cannot do an in-person show. Yeah, get excited, Naomi. Woo! So that's going to be 2 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You do not have to watch for all 6 hours, but you know, we thought might want to do one of those fun marathon streams we're always seeing on Twitch and hearing so much about. So this is going to be mostly showcasing our undergraduate and graduate final projects. So these are their year-long capstone and thesis projects. Should be really fun. We'll try to feature some live gameplay. We'll try to feature some interviews with the students. And as a special treat, we're also trying to run this kind of guest book kind of thing where we invite members of the public to write messages of congratulations or even job offers or whatever you like. I pasted the link to the Google form in our chat, or you can go to our website and click this link right here. We invite the public to help us send our students off into that big, scary world that they are totally prepared for, that an education has totally prepared them for. So first off, yeah, that's what we're doing on May 20th.
And we know that there are some bigwigs, some celebrities, and some VIPs who watch this show because I've heard from them. We need you to show up and provide some pizzazz for this event. So please make time in your busy schedules, big shots. You know I'm talking to the journalists and the game developers and the power brokers of the industry that watch this show. Get in there.
Stay tuned for a schedule of when various games are going to be on that 6-hour stream. You could pick the time when you want to show up and make some noise in chat, help keep the energy up. I think our fondest desire is that we capture some of the same energy that we get every spring in person with showing games to our community, and that we can have a little bit fraction of that through chat. So your responses, I think, are going to be really valuable to like whatever ends up going on May 21st.
Exactly. And we also want to take a few minutes just at the top of our stream to highlight more of our student work. That is our student streamers who are, you know, trying to do the hustle on Twitch just like everyone else. And although we will be going on hiatus in the summer, our students will presumably still be streaming. So we encourage you to follow and check out our students. So first off over here, this is a student account, George Machado. I'll paste the link to their Twitch over here in our chat channel. Let's watch a little bit of one of George's streams. Disco Cop? That sounds good. Let's watch a little bit of that. Mostly a black screen, it looks like. Very bold, George. Oh, okay. He's playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, it looks like. Okay.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot of that.
Let's cut to some gameplay, maybe. Let's see what George is up to.
I don't think I will ever be able to play this remake. I can't go back to that time in my life.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm already in trouble with my opinion about video games. No one wants to hear what I think about this game.
It looks like George isn't talking much, though. He's fully immersed in the world of Midgar, getting chomped by these weird monsters.
I've watched a lot of George's stream. He actually does talk a lot. He's super charming and funny and interacts with chat quite a bit. He's a great streamer. Definitely worth checking out. And look at that mustache. Come on.
And look at that combat technique.
Very good quarantine mustache.
Trying to find a bit where he's talking.
Oh, I do love Tifa. It sort of makes me I can't watch these streams either because I'm like, oh, I love Tifa, but I can't go back to that time in my life, which I should explain was my senior year in college is when this game came out.
Oh, interesting. Full circle.
Oh my god. Wait, yeah, we're getting reports that George shaved his mustache on stream.
What?
Oh
wow,
my goodness.
Okay. Well, you can go back and check that out. And also now you can see George Machado's full face on his stream.
Oh, and the man himself.
So shout out to George, who's live in the chat right now. And for a minute, I thought that George in the video was talking to us because he turned to the camera and then his chat popped up. And I forgot about how time works.
It's very intense. I mean, time is non-linear, you know? But anyway, that's George. Please check out George's channel. Let's also shout out to some other students. So here's another student. Their account name is Mary Georgescu.
Thank you. So we will come back with that.
Yep.
I mean, it would be nice to also have some health, but...
Looks like some castle
that's fine.
vein? No.
Rogue Legacy, it looks like.
Oh, Rogue Legacy.
Rogue Legacy, yeah.
I can't see real well.
I want to go explore that.
Size.
Yeah, shout out to Mary.
Oh, yes.
Great streamer, great gamer.
And some food.
Rogue Legacy gamer.
No,
Yeah, good taste.
Go
Rogue
ahead.
Legacy is a good
Not doing
choice.
it. It's real rough. But I will. Go to the
Mary
next
also
Like that
sometimes does art streams as well.
Mhm.
So if you're interested in following some fellow artists and
will
game
not
artists, Mary is like a cool variety streamer who
journal
mixes
entry
up
number
the
4.
format sometimes.
Everything about this castle is off. I can't seem to keep track of my headings, and there's no sun or stars to guide me. I find myself backtracking constantly.
We should
and
probably
must
play Rogue
painstakingly
Legacy.
map
We should all
out
probably play Rogue
my
Legacy. I haven't
progress
played
lest
it
I
yet.
go in circles. The maps I've pilfered off the corpses
Okay,
of
and
other
then
adventurers
shout
are
out to
breathtakingly
another
inaccurate.
student streamer here. I'll drop the link in the channel here. Here's Charlie Art.
Unlock. Okay, layer 4 variant we've discussed was the log
Here's
guy.
Charlie.
This
Seems
guy,
to be
I
doing
don't know
a
why she calls him
development
Log Man.
stream,
Makes sense.
And
working
with puppy
on.
dog.
Oh, sorry.
I was saying, are those puppy dog
Yeah, what's odd? One
ears?
second.
Some
Yes.
serious
Oh,
clicker
buddy
action.
needs to be
I think
done.
Charlie is a big fan of the snap camera integration.
There we go.
Yes.
I might change up their colors.
And I believe
like a
Charlie seems to be
college
working
thing.
on a
It's like-
project for my class. Oh dear.
Let's see.
I'm sorry, Charlie.
Very
Working on.
So are you allowed to
Love it when
stream
he's
a
exactly
student
what I need.
stream when they're working on a
I'm
project?
gonna
for your
go
class?
back into. 'cause
Yeah,
now we
I don't
that
know.
Now,
Oh,
Robert,
there's
is this the
scientists,
streaming
there's a
class?
log boy,
Is this a project? Because you teach
and
a
unpacking,
class
make sure there's
in
nothing underneath him.
creating streaming
Copy
content,
that
right?
component, put it on the
Yes.
parent one.
I teach a streaming class, which some of
Why
these
is he so
students
squished?
are also enrolled
Oh, no, it shows
in
the
and have been
ankle I was
streaming
at,
for the
okay.
past semester.
So
But this is
confused.
also for another class I
Oh,
teach,
he's so small.
where
Let's make him
I
big.
basically just tell students to make games and then sit back and wait for them to make games.
Let's make him big
So
and
it's a
move him
wonderful class.
forward. And he also
And
has
Charlie's
the
been a great
blood-shaped
student, and you can see
balloon.
some of Charlie's wonderful development skills on display right here.
Just squish him out just a little so that
That
all
is
these
that
are
is
the same.
our pedagogical secret,
why
by
are
the
not
way.
all the
Anyone who's
same?
curious about how the
Odd.
NYU Game Center works. Basically, what Robert just described is our philosophy of how to teach.
I was gonna say, I thought our philosophy of how to teach was that that thing that happened in your class where you guys broke the universe by running Zoom from inside of
Oh,
Tabletop
okay.
Simulator.
Let's see what his
Yeah,
So
that-
good. I can't tell
allowed to
you.
post links in chat yet. Did I get permission? Because I just posted a link to this tweet.
Oh,
And,
I forgot to enable links in
I've been
chat. I'm
censored.
sorry.
I've been censored. But yeah, this is the most Game Center thing that I've seen in a long time. As
Yeah, so we're using Tabletop Simulator in intermediate game design to do exercises and projects. And so Tabletop Simulator is beautiful, by the way. I love it. It's a great piece of software, and I'm really into it. And all it does is allow you to create board games and tabletop games without any gameplay logic in them. So the logic that's in Tabletop Simulator is just physics of cards and pieces and boards and how they work. So you can shuffle cards, you can have a hand of cards, but they don't attempt to build any of the game logic in. So it's a really wonderful tool for game designers to prototype and to design and actually to play games. So we've been using it. One of the things that they have in Tabletop Simulator, along with boards and pieces and cards, they have a little device that's a screen that you can use as a web browser, and it actually works. And one of my students during class figured out that you could log into Zoom through this device inside of Tabletop Simulator. And so we were all in a Zoom inside Tabletop Simulator, and then he was in the Zoom in Tabletop Simulator inside the Zoom. And so
this is breaking my brain.
You could peer into it, and it was just an ever descending nest of simulations that extended into infinity, mise en abîme, and it was beautiful.
The most Game Center thing I think I've seen in a while. And yeah, in both a good and bad way. It's maybe a sort of definitionally navel gazing.
Yeah, it's very NYU Game Center. Because you know that board games are digital and computer games are analog. You have to start out with that understanding. That's
proves it.
Oh God. Okay. Save this debate. Save this debate for the discourse.
We're not going to go back into it.
Back up from the microphone, buddy. Get out.
I'm sorry, we're eating into our
truth
time.
Let me just show off one more student here. This is Adam Maximum. Adam Maximum. Looks like here they are streaming Deus Ex, original Deus Ex. Looks like the Hong Kong section. And Adam Maximum specializes a lot in like immersive sim kind of level designy games. You know, very good taste. I'm a fan of that.
I feel obligated to because I.
Yeah, that's some old school Robert Yang style streaming.
Very, yeah.
So yeah, needless to say, I'm a fan.
I have definitely gone back and
I'm gonna check that out later.
Yeah, I watched a lot of your level design streams, Robert, and they're all great. So anyone who hasn't had a chance to go check out those Level With Me videos, the ones where you look at some of the famous Thief levels and stuff like that, definitely a little game design education happening right there.
Aw, thanks, Frank. And also check out our students as well when they stream level design too. Okay, I dropped the link in the chat. Please check out Adam Maximum again. And those are just a few of our students who are doing streaming here at Game Center. Again, we encourage you to watch and support them and like and subscribe and all that jazz. All right.
Is this Deus Ex?
The original.
Yes, the original Deus Ex.
This is Deus Ex, right? Wasn't there some Deus Ex news recently? I forget what it was. Oh, somebody used a Deus Ex character as an avatar.
Elon
Some
Musk.
like
Oh,
weird
no.
MAGA troll
Really?
used the Deus Ex character as a, or it was either a MAGA troll
No,
or
no,
maybe
that's
there was
it,
the
it was
president. I don't remember.
it was Elon Musk, and it's because he
Oh, it
looks
was
like
Elon Musk.
he
That was
looks
it.
like the
Okay.
first Deus Ex. He looks like the Deus
Yeah.
guy. And that's not a compliment. He looks like the 3D model of the original Deus Ex character.
We don't make fun of people's appearances here.
He's a gammon. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. He just has a new tiny baby. So
Yes.
moment when we're not nice to people. Okay.
Yeah.
Forget that. Let's talk about IndyCar.
Okay, yeah, take it away. Now let's seg over to the discourse where we talk about important game news and important game adjacent news. So take it away, Frank and Naomi.
All right, this was something that I think a lot of Game Center faculty got way too excited about. Right, this virtual race that's run by IndyCar, which, if I'm understanding correctly, they're the organization that run the Indy 500, right, and other races on that competitive circuit. They ran a race with actual drivers inside the game iRacing, which is it's a serious racing simulation. At the opposite end of the Mario Kart to extremely serious scale, like iRacing is on the far end. And yeah, the people, some of the drivers were very, very bad boys in this game. Like the deliberately crashing into each other's cars, causing accidents in a way that we might find really funny in a lot of video games, but in this case, it was actually sparked some real controversy and possibly even disciplinary action. Can you explain further, Frank? What do you think?
Yeah, this is such a fascinating story, and it touches on so many different things. First of all, there's an interesting moment happening right now in our relationship to sports overall, because of the pandemic and the lack of live sports to watch. There's this kind of strange mutation of people's attention, and I think this is a really big deal. This iRacing league, but I think it exists alongside, for example, the Last Dance, right? The documentary about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls that everyone's currently watching on ESPN, which is just blowing up huge. I think partly as a replacement for actual sports, and it's this incredibly well-crafted story about basketball, and it contains a lot of really great basketball action in it. This I think is, if we're talking about like the NYU Game Center and like our engagement with these topics, we've always just had a love for the places that traditional non-video games and computers and digital games intersect and overlap. So the idea that a sport like this, which is about the danger and excitement of physical, machinery moving at high speed, could also exist. I mean, it's the same drivers, it's much of the same skill, it's the same audience, and it kind of translates over. It's this weird version of the metaverse, right? It actually, it's not, it's a very interesting kind of alchemical transformation of the same beauty and meaning of car racing, but in this other format. There's actually one of the a friend of the Game Center and someone who's taught at the Game Center before, Simon Ferrari, he once talked about the idea of car racing, auto racing, like NASCAR, as being an example of tool-assisted sports, right? Auto racing, like NASCAR, was already a kind of e-sport, because it was about the relationship of the athlete moderated through their skill at controlling a machine, right? So car racing kind of already existed in this in-between space between athletics as being an expression of just the human body on its own, like on the mat, right, on the wrestling mat, and the human body kind of negotiated through machinery and technology. And so here we just see a further expression of that. And then the things that are important is that it's about how the norms that govern car racing change under these conditions. Like, car racing has this elaborate set of rules about behavior that have to be in place in order for this sport to exist, because it's too dangerous otherwise. Many of those rules are not written down. They can't be written down, because a rule that is written down is a rule that you are invited to edge up to and try to interpret explicitly. The most important rules in sports are the ones that are unspoken. And so there are these really important rules in auto racing that govern what is allowable in terms of how closely you push the other cars. And in this new format, where there is not the risk of actual life and death crashing, those norms are starting to unravel. And now people are worried about how to maintain those norms when we transition back to live racing. So there's so much going on here that touches on all of these different topics. It's a beautiful article.
Yeah, it just unfolds more and more the more you read about it. I mean, or if you even look at Simon Pagenaud, who's like a serious real world competitor, his setup for playing the game is like trying to recreate the experience of being in a car, right? So it's almost like there's a unspoken experience between iRacing and the actual Indy 500, which is a game where Simon Pagenaud is sitting controlling a car remotely that's actually racing around a real racetrack, right? Like, if we had had enough time to prepare for a global pandemic, then they would have set that up, right? It would be like actual cars being driven around remotely on a real track. And like, how different, it's slightly different, right? But that would also remove this question of, is it dangerous to human beings if you cause a crash? I mean, it would be much more expensive to crash the real car. And I don't know how you would deal with the pit stops and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's this whole sort of lensing out interesting process, because the other guy that caused a crash in this iRacing, same race and same event, was much more obviously deliberately doing it. And that guy, I forget his name. It's Ferrucci. Ferrucci has gotten kicked out of races before for doing that in the real world. Like, that guy's definitely willing to cause accidents in the real world because he's a sore loser, or in order to sort of like throw the competition awry. He's a table flipper for real. And so when it comes to when he starts doing it in a video game, is that different than if Pagenaud, who's otherwise a sportsman-like competitor, does it in a video game? I don't know. Like, read this article. It's super good. And also subscribe to the Sportswoman. A link in chat to staff Gwyneth Thrift and Tony Pizza have this newsletter that's all about women, queer, and trans and non-binary athletes, and you should be on that mailing list.
You have to sign up for this. It is such a good newsletter. Anyone who's watching the discourse, you must sign up for it. I love Sportswoman. Huge fan.
Well, let's go to the next link, which is the virtual Kentucky Derby. Thanks, shout out to Chris Wallace for suggesting that we talk about this along with the ice racing controversy. This is the opposite. Totally not controversial at all. They ran a virtual Kentucky Derby. There are no human players involved. It's just a simulation of horses running around a virtual racetrack. And Secretariat won, which is like anybody who knows about Secretariat or has seen one of the Secretariat movies is probably not surprised by the fact that Secretariat won. Secretariat is like the only non-human to regularly appear on lists of the greatest athletes of all time. He was like such an incredible horse, just at the physical, biological level, in terms of his lung capacity and heart and the power of his legs and stuff like that. That he beat all of his other competitors at the times, considered, and so now, they modeled Secretariat. They had Secretariat race against a bunch of other Triple Crown winners, and Secretariat beat all of them. Somehow I find this like super uninteresting, because it's like just running a simulation based on sabermetrics, based on sports stats, right? And is that interesting? Is it even as interesting as a marble race? I don't know. What do you think, Frank?
Well, first of all, marble races are surprisingly entertaining.
Oh, they're great. Marble races are fantastic.
Yeah.
If a marble race were modeled by, by 538, by Nate Silver and those folks, and it was like, oh, let's try and math out which of these marbles is actually most likely to win based on weight and friction and the minutely understood properties of the track, then my theory is that they would stop being interesting immediately if you just did a virtual marble race using a simulation.
I would take the over on that.
Okay.
I actually think that I think there is a version of this that is entertaining, that involves horse. I think the version of virtual horse racing. I mean, I think there's a subgenre of video games, right? There's a genre of video games that's about horse racing and breeding and racing. And I think a multiplayer, shared, public, large scale version of that could be really entertaining and good. And I would expect that to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I guess maybe what makes this is what's causing my reaction, in part that it's Secretariat. It's like, oh, everyone already agrees that Secretariat is the greatest racing horse of all time. So if you have a headline that's like Secretariat won in this simulation, I'm like, so what? Is that what it is?
Yeah, this strikes me as a little bit more of a gimmick than the iRacing League, which seems like a legit, competition.
Right.
I think to make this fun, you have to do a little more work setting up the context, setting up the stakes, having an understanding of the skills that are going into the tactical and strategic decision making of the people preparing and breeding and training these virtual horses, and then allow people to bet.
Right, allow people to bet. That is certainly a ton of the excitement of a marble race.
Then I'm pretty sure you would have a multi-billion-dollar video game online hobby.
Sure. And because Secretariat would be the clear favorite in terms of odds, right? And so then it would be like, well, who's betting against that? And were they disappointed?
Yeah, I think it's the historical stuff that makes this feel like a weird model of something that's not real. Whereas if these were real virtual horses, if they were real pretend horses, then I think it would be fun.
Their reporting on this, I think, was good. They're just kind of throwing shade on this event. They were like, no margins were provided. The computer imagery failed to capture the dirt from the track that sticks to the horses in the back. There was no noise from the usual crowd, and all of these things that sort of didn't simulate quite right. And I think that's such an interesting argument for fidelity, is when you look at like what would it take to make a satisfying virtual Kentucky Derby. That's maybe
I think if I were involved, if someone were to hire me as a game design consultant on a project like this, I would want to figure out, can we get to a place where what we're watching when the game is run is the simulation running? In other words, what I would want to encourage is not to run the simulation and then create an animation that presents the results of the simulation in an entertaining way. Instead, I would want to be able to commit to everyone and say, look, no one knows. Before we run this simulation, and we're going to run it live, we literally, no one knows what's going to happen. Because of the complexity of the sim and all the data that feeds into it, what you're seeing happen in the simulation is happening live in front of us.
Right.
And then I think that's the energy that you want. Then you're watching this thing unfold. You actually are watching an event. The fact that it's a simulation doesn't take away from the fact that you are watching the event happen. It's mathematical, it is procedural, but it's real.
Right. And Salty Horse is pointing out in chat that this is an animal-assisted sport, right? Not just a tool-assisted sport. There are other living beings who participate. And, well, Secretariat died of a horrible hoof disease. Actually, it was just like in a laminitis, inflammation of the laminaria of the hoof, and it was super, super tragic end. But yeah, I think what's also an interesting question is if you were able to really heavily simulate a horse race, would it mean that you could have fewer actual horses involved in racing and not have animals working their asses off literally for a sport?
Is Salty Horse, is your name actually about betting, online betting on horses? Did we conjure you up for this segment, or is it just a coincidence that Salty Horse is the ultimate on-screen online name for someone who's betting on a virtual horse race?
Salty Horse has pointed out that they are not a horse.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that.
Let's keep on going with further links. Speaking of non-players and marble races and having simulated competitors, so let's go back to making fun of Stadia. We're the only people who like to talk about Stadia. So this actually, I think, is really interesting. Stadia has suddenly released a port of PUBG, and it was unexpected. They didn't announce it well in advance. But the weird thing about Stadia suddenly running PUBG is that now PUBG, including the console versions, oddly enough, are overrun with bots that behave in a really weird manner. They're official bots, and the community is complaining about them because they act in stupid ways, right? They just sit and stare for a while. They like spray bullets weirdly. People think like, what is happening? This is ruining our experience. And what I'm wondering is, wait a second, is this Google just refining its AI technology and using a bunch of PUBG players for research and just harvesting a lot of data by deploying and improving a lot, like an AI that tries to play a battle royale game, which is probably a pretty difficult challenge compared to more staid or predictable state-based strategy games. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here. It's clear that there's I think that theory is pretty plausible, that Stadia is using this as a test bed because they are inside of Google. Google is basically an AI company, and why wouldn't you like open the gates and give your AI team free reign to make a bunch of weird bots for a popular battle royale?
Right. So Stadia is free now, right? It's free in part because you are providing data for the AI players to sharpen their teeth on. They should probably take the next step and just make a bunch of games free. I mean, why not? Maybe they could sell people on this with the idea that if you play games against our AI now, then maybe they'll be favorably disposed towards you in the future when they take over the world. It's like the reverse Roko's Basilisk.
I would play a game that was programming a bot for a battle royale, because for me, the real challenge with battle royales is that they don't work for dedicated expert level play. So they don't make good high level competitive games. They're not very watchable. The attempts to make them into kind of an esport where there's a broadcast view that moves between teams or players has never worked in my view. I don't think it works very well. However, they are entertaining to watch a single player. So if you log in and watch one good player navigate a battle royale, it works, and it's not doesn't really feel like a sport, but it feels more like, I don't know, it's some other kind of entertaining.
It's like the Hunger Games or something, right? So it's all
yeah,
about unpredictability.
Exactly. So I think a version of PUBG where you maybe using some kind of simplified plug and play drop down programming language, you program a bot and then you're just watching, you're a camera that's following that bot and cheering it on. I think that could be amazing, and you could probably do that as a mod, right?
Isn't the way that bots are programmed these days? It is this machine learning model, right? Where it's all about like, it just it harvests and refines on a data set, and you just have to give it more example data to chew up.
Yeah,
and that's why these bots are doing weird things. Is because they're machine learning bots. They're not, fuzzy. They're not fuzzy logic or state-based bots of the kind of that we would normally try for. Like if you want an AI that plays a strategy game, well, just from the point of view of the players and the player's experience, then you make something where you're like, I need to make this intelligible to a human, so I'm going to like model out all of the things that an AI can do and think about like what's the probability it'll do it, and then if I want to make the bot difficult, I have it cheat or do whatever, right? But this is a whole other level of bot where it's not about a decision tree. It's about like this really overly complicated machine model that looks all wonky.
Yeah,
I don't know, and this is an interesting question for anybody who's working on AI for these types of games, is can you fuse those two models together easily, where you're like, I want to have a really smart game designer or someone playing a game about programming bots work on the decision tree part of this and guide this bot, and then also get all of this horsepower of a machine learning model that's fueled by an enormous data set. Maybe those, and I don't know what it is.
Naomi, I would like to announce my new project.
Oh.
It's called Bottle Royale.
Bottle Royale.
And it's exactly this idea. So look for that coming soon to, I don't know, Epic Game Store, Stadia, Magic Leap. Coming soon to Magic Leap.
This is a real announcement, by the way, right?
Yeah. Is it? I don't
know. All right, let's go to the next link. We're back to Animal Crossing, everybody.
Yes. So if you just are joining the discourse for the first time, first of all, welcome. Where have you been? Secondly, this is a show where we talk about two topics: Stadia and Animal Crossing. So welcome to the Animal Crossing.
This is the Animal Crossing segment. This week in the Animal Crossing news, the New York Times has done an article about fashion in Animal Crossing. And shout outs to a bunch of NYU Game Center friends who are in this article. This screenshot at the top is from Tara Mustafa, who is the co-founder with Professor Mitu Kondekar of Glow Up Games. Also quoted article, adjunct Professor Maddie Bryce. And recent MFA graduates, Oliver Hong and Jeff McDowell. Also, Jeff. All talking about their experiences with using Animal Crossing as a fashion outlet, since it's where you can go out to be seen and see people, since it's very difficult to do that in the real world right now. This is a delightful article, and not just because I knew a bunch of the people talking about their fashion style.
This is the best version of Animal Crossing right here.
Yes.
Yeah.
This, we should say, this is really important for any game that's going down this new route of, first it's a social platform, and then on top of that we have game, right? Or, well, we made a game, but then somehow inadvertently we made this amazing social platform, which is the traditional way of doing it. You have to be able to dress up. You have to be able to express fashion. And how well you can do that is such an indicator of how robust the community will be. I think, the more we pay attention to fashion, I think the richer games will get, not as a direct effect, but as a correlation, right? Of thinking about experience in a different way.
Yeah, friend of the show, Margaret Robertson, has talked about this a lot. Game designer, works at Dots, and she is always talking about contemporary fashion as and one of her big inspirations for game design. And yeah, it's such a rich source of good energy.
Yep. And there's been a lot of articles about this coming out recently. I think also this week, in the next link is about how streetwear labels are releasing clothes in Animal Crossing. I think, actually a little bit more surprising than the lifestyle-focused New York Times coverage. But yeah, they interviewed some actual marketing folks from labels who are talking about how they're putting clothes out in AC. I think there's something interesting here, and then I think the base template for a lot of the Animal Crossing clothes, there's only a certain number of 3D models in the game. It is really conducive somehow to streetwear in a way that I don't know if it was really intentional, right? But part of the idea of like labels like Supreme is like, well, we're taking something basic and we are making it ultra cool through the application of our label and through some graphic design and things like that. And that works so well in the virtual world, right? Well, traditionally, I think we talked a few weeks ago about collaborations between fashion labels in the video game world, like Christian Dior doing a partnership with Square Enix or whatever. But haute couture is not real heavily suitable. It's not as easy to make the jump in the video game world because there are too many polygons in haute couture or there's something about that, right? It's just it's so much more about structure and modeling, and whereas this is just, it's primed for streetwear already. Anybody can jump in and do this kind of design and express themselves on top of the kind of ready-mades that Animal Crossing provides.
Constraints are good.
Yep.
And this kind of demonstrates the way that Animal Crossing is sort of like Lego for 20-somethings, you know what I mean? Like it's got this kind of modular, snap together, creative, expressive vibe that's just like much richer and cooler and full of pop culture hooks. And Naomi, there's a mutual friend of ours who is interested in doing streetwear, and I can't say who it is because this person has not announced it yet. But I'll just tell you this: you would be surprised.
I would be surprised because
you would be surprised that this person is
about it all.
They are thinking about coming out with like a weird video game streetwear kind of branding thing.
Interesting.
And,
I look forward to seeing that Ian Bogoth's new streamer.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
All right. Let's see. Where are we at? Oh, yeah. Actually, interesting pointing out in chat, people are talking about why is it attractive to dress up in games? Well, it's in part because you also have the body is pre-made, right? Like everyone has the same body in Animal Crossing, more or less. And usually that's kind of, we see that as not being adequate representation of body types. But actually, I think in Animal Crossing, because it's a little bit more like a Lego minifig, right? We're down at the level of abstraction and kiddiness that's similar to Haboon, like the Habbo Hotel clone, where a lot of our students are making things right now. It's just a template that you can map your expression onto. It's not meant to like represent you, except it does represent you, because you can look at someone in Haboon or in Animal Crossing and be like, whoa, I recognize you. You've got the same style going on that you do in the real world. So somehow it removes our physical embodiment. It sort of liberates us from that and just allows the sort of expressive side to come forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's in visual design, there's a lot of power in the interplay between variety and repetition. So you can get a lot of energy from having one parameter that is fixed and never changes, and then a huge amount of openness in all these other parameters. And so I think that's part of what we're seeing. And I didn't realize that until you mentioned it. But yeah, it is the fact that the tunes in Animal Crossing are all cookie cutter repetitions in terms of their physical size and shape.
Right.
And then that allows them to be even more expressive on all these other dimensions.
Yeah, exactly. I think there is a real energy there. I think that's the right word. Let's just go quickly through the next link, and then I want to skip forward. But so this was really interesting. This video, I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, Frank, but I thought of you. This is a fake Nintendo Direct video where the people who made this video are fantasizing about what if Nintendo actually fixed all the things that are wrong with the interface, reduced the friction, made it less fussy, all the things that you've been complaining about here on this stream for weeks. But they went to the extent where, like, look, they're actually they made some new dialogues for Animal Crossing that don't exist. They're doing a lot of UI design work just for the purposes of putting this video out. I wonder whether this is partially personal self-expression, right? And like somebody who likes doing this stuff. But I think it's also like a shot fired directly at Nintendo, being like, look, I can do this. I'm willing to do this and put it in a YouTube video. Why can't you guys actually make the interactive version of this?
I did watch this video, and it's amazing. I love when people, first of all, people are amazing. The internet never ceases to blow my mind with the amount of creativity and energy and effort that people put into these weird projects that they're just doing for free and sharing with the rest of the world. It's amazing. So that's incredible. I love to watch people do this kind of interaction design makeover because interaction design is such a new discipline. It's actually a really, really difficult and complicated skill to develop. And so watching people work through the kinds of problems that you get in interfaces and interaction, I always think is really entertaining and fun. And this was a great video. I think most of these are just straight up improvements.
Right. And here's the interesting thing. If you could mod Animal Crossing, this video probably wouldn't exist, right? Because the frustration that went into it would be channeled into like wanting somebody to mod it, somebody to release a mod, or the person who made this would actually just try to make a mod. And then far fewer people would know about it because installing mods is really difficult. There would be mod conflicts. There would be guides on how to do a diff merge with the mod. And so in some ways it would be like we wouldn't actually see as much design going out into the world as with this YouTube version. And I don't know, maybe more people at Nintendo will pay attention to this too. Nintendo is not really known for like seeing something that a fan does and being like, you know what, maybe we should change our ways. That's not really their style.
That's not Nintendo style. But there is a version of an economy where people like this can get reimbursed, get compensated, make money by doing things like this. And I think that's a version of the economy that we should strive to get through. I think if we could get to a version of the internet where this kind of energy, which people are so passionate about making this work, making the world better, making this thing that they love better, if we can, find some way to channel that so that there are incentives and rewards for these people, I think that's a good version of the internet to try to get to.
I'll just throw it out there. This is related to the metaverse topic from last week, right? Because that's one of the requirements for a metaverse is that you can do that. But the real design challenge is how do you make that without it turning into another Second Life or VR chat, where it's just a free-for-all, anything goes, context of no context place, where then, yeah, you can make anything you want and sell it to people, and there are people who will buy it. But most people will be like, no, I don't really want to go there. It's just a whole lot of sex chat all the time.
Yeah. And there are other problematics. There are other problematic aspects of this. I mean, Doug Wilson on Twitter pointed out that the inefficiency of the Animal Crossing interface is kind of related in an interesting way to the design intention of the game. So it's not so simple that, oh, we should just open this thing up and that we should always be seeking maximum efficiency and speed and power in our interfaces. Animal Crossing, for better or worse, is a holistic work. It is what it is. Flaws and its beauty are related to each other. So you can't just go into it and fix it. That's not how art works, right? We don't think that, oh, like art exists to be improved and fixed. And so it's a complicated question. But in this case, I just think, an open version of Animal Crossing that allowed people like this to make these kinds of improvements. There's some version of that could work.
Right. Yeah. And me personally, I find myself surprisingly in the category of, I want the GameCube version back, right? Like I'm not usually one of these nostalgic types, but in this case, I'm like, you didn't capture the spirit of that friction and that slowness as well as the original Animal Crossing. And I sort of feel it deep in my heart that that's true. So who knows? Let's skip down since we've got 10 minutes left. I want to go to the news about for the PC Gamer article about the ESRB rating of Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
we have to talk about this customizable genitals. Yeah, so this just dropped onto the internet yesterday, I think, that this was one of those finds where the ESRB rates something, and then the rating report from the ESRB is so weird and lurid that it turns into a news story. So this is, of course, the upcoming CD Projekt Red port of the tabletop role-playing game Cyberpunk 2020 into a open-world role-playing game. And yeah, they're trying to out Robert Yang here. Will they actually do it? Well, the real
spoiler, no, you can't out Robert Yang.
Yeah, I think they have a long way to go.
Got a long way to go.
Yeah, so Cyberpunk 2077, it's been a weird ride. I've been following this game on and off for announcements for a while. I'm not like hanging out in the Reddit or at any level of fandom like that. But actually, I don't know if you know this, but the very first game that I ever did any game design for was also a video game port of Cyberpunk 2020. And that was back in the mid 90s. It was a MUD that was based on the same role-playing game. So I have a weird attachment to the idea of porting this to video game form. And yeah, it's in some ways it doesn't surprise me, because a core idea of those 90s role-playing games across maybe 3 or 4 different role-playing games is that you can customize your genitals.
Yeah.
It's also like in video games, the first heavy-duty customizing of genitals were in spaces like Second Life because of that phenomenon you were talking about, where people just express themselves creatively and then find people to buy their stuff. And it turns out one thing that you can really sell in a virtual world is customized genitals. But I think this is still sort of surprising for a big AAA studio with a lot of hardcore game fans to make an announcement like this, mostly because of how weird and fluid their approach to genders and genitals seem to be
weird and fluid is a good way of describing it. And
yeah, they say various sizes and combinations of genitals. So
yeah,
this seems like part of what they're going for here is that you can have multiple sets of genitals, which, yeah, I think that's much more in line with the cyberpunk spirit than just the earlier iterations of this. I think Conan Exiles is mentioned by PC Gamer, and that was just about like you can have a normal sized dong on your avatar, or you can have a huge dong, and that's very old school. This is like the next wave.
I mean, it makes me think of the way that genitals themselves are already an interface between information space and the real world, right? If you think about evolution, genetics, sex,
okay,
how all of these things work together to like, and how like it just reminds me of like this is Cyberpunk 2077 is like the iRacing league of sex, right? You know what I mean? It's this weird version.
It took me a second to understand where you were going there, because I just don't associate sex with reproduction at all.
No, of course not. Of course not. But like that's the point, that we're like 20 levels downstream,
right,
from being from the any kind of original point of
right.
any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a long process of evolving and escalating the sort of causes and effects and of all of the things that we are and all the things that we do. Right. And at every stage, we kind of take what we have inherited from the past generation and we kind of reinvent it, and we put it to our own uses, and we figure out what we need now and how to get the thing that we're looking for now with whatever equipment that we've inherited, and we just keep going with that. And there's something kind of strange and beautiful about it. I actually think that this makes me a little bit more interested in this game than I was before. And it's also, I think, the team behind Cyberpunk 2077, it's not clear what their vibe is, and it seems to be changing and evolving as we watch.
So I've spent during the social distancing period is playing the entire oeuvre of CD Projekt Red. So I've played now all of their games just recently.
What else other than The Witcher what are they known for? Racing?
They've mostly done Witcher games, right? That's what they're primarily known for, but they've done a lot of them, including Gwent, the mobile game, right? Yeah. And also a digital board game called Thronebreaker, which is also set in the Witcher universe. And they also have some other mobile games. Are they
Polish? Game. Are they Polish primarily?
They are a Polish company. And I think what's interesting about them is that they kind of have this very Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, San Andreas vibe to a lot of their work. It's kind of deliberately immature and potty-mouthed in a way that you're like, okay, who's this for? You're trying to appeal to 13-year-old boys. And then when they released The Witcher 3, it's like The Witcher 2 was their shifter AAA. It's kind of a lot like Far Cry 3. They're trying to sort of capture that energy. And then The Witcher 3 was a dad game. It's all about being a dad. It's just like God of War or Last of Us or all those dad games, right? So they've kind of have matured, but they still have this very sort of slightly aggressively ignoramus-y but kind of trash mouth approach, where every single of their games you have to be able to get drunk and fall down drunk. And there's always a dwarf talking about how you can suck his dick and stuff like that, right? There's always that stuff in these games. And now Cyberpunk 2077 is their first really non-Witcher game, and they're working with Mike Pondsmith, the designer of the original RPG. And there's been a lot of controversy about this game, and I'm not really sure whether it's going to be a total trash fire. Actually, it probably should be a sort of trash fire. Otherwise, it wouldn't really be a CD Projekt Red game.
When I watched the videos of the gameplay that they've released recently for this game, I'm so conflicted about it. I mean, aside from all of the kind of weird, regressive political things that the team has stumbled into and unfortunate things I said, just looking at the game itself, on one level, it's extraordinarily beautiful, and it looks like it's going to be a kind of a state-of-the-art expression of contemporary AAA video game aesthetics, for good and bad. Partly, I respond to that. I mean, I think there's something that contemporary AAA video games are the cathedrals of our era, right? They are the kind of most elaborate, complicated, and impressive kind of expressions of aesthetic style. But on the other hand, it also looks incredibly tedious and dull and kind of stressful and unpleasant in a way that most AAA video
Frank,
games.
that's the good part of CD Projekt Red games is they're so similar to Rockstar games in this way, right? That the best design in Red Dead is all of the stupid, tedious stuff where you're like, why is this in here? Right? Like that's where all the actual design touches are. Those are the sculptures on the outside of the cathedral where you actually see the hand of the craftsperson who's making it. Is on all this like weird stuff, like why do I have to like go and ride this horse in this particular way? Like why do I have to walk at this speed? And it's related to what we were talking about with Animal Crossing. And CD Projekt Red games, all of the previous ones which I've played, all of the best touches are about this like stupid, finicky RPG stuff that's inherited from Baldur's Gate. That's really kind of the original origin point. If you remember like how overcomplicated all the D&D crap was in Baldur's Gate, if you remember like way back in the day, CD Projekt Red has basically inherited all that and transported it into this AAA world. And the AAA part, of course, is beautiful but personalityless, and it's by having all of this like pointless, finicky, weird, tedious BS that the creativity of the studio is preserved.
Naomi, you posted the actual ESRB rating to this game, and if I could just read a little bit of it, I think there's something quite beautiful about it, because this is a description of why the ESRB has given the game the rating it has.
Yeah, let's look at that.
But it's almost like a perfect example of the objective game criticism that people remember when there was like a small subset of people who wanted that. So here's the rating summary. This is a first-person RPG shooter in which players assume the role of a mercenary named V, trying to make their way through the open world of Night City. Players can explore futuristic locations, interact with citizens, perform missions, and engage in combat to complete various objectives within a storyline. Characters use handguns, machine guns, rifles, and explosives during frenetic firefights with humans and cybernetically enhanced enemies. Players can also use melee weapons, e.g. wrist-mounted blades, enhanced limbs, to stab enemies, and in some cases, dismember them. Combat is frenetic, with frequent gunfire, cries of pain, explosions, and blood spatter effects. Some locations depict mutilated corpses with open chest cavities and/or exposed organs, entrails. During one quest, players assist a character by hammering nails through his hands and feet. Screaming sounds and blood effects accompany the scene. The game contains nudity and sexual material. This is like the Bible. Can you imagine the Bible? They're describing the Bible. I think they accidentally got a hold of the Bible and are describing that.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's clear that there is a quest where you have to help somebody crucify themselves in a weird way that's like all about degenerate body horror that should be in any good cyberpunk game, I guess. But yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah,
I guess we should. Are we wrapping it up here? Are we stopping at 1? Are we going?
Yeah, normally this is the time where Robert tells us to put a sock in it, but apparently he's taking us off the leash. So I guess we're going to go all day. So buckle up, folks, because the discourse is going to go for another hour. No,
I think maybe oh no, we've been cut off. Well, I'm going to put one more link into chat in tribute to the original role-playing game. Here's Christine Love giving a shout-out to Night City. Yeah, I guess this is the end of the discourse for this season, right?
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
wow.
This is our last show of the spring.
Okay, yeah, I guess. Maybe we should figure out some version of it, that can go over the summer. That doesn't require as much infrastructure, because we don't want to force Mirabai and Robert to do all this work over the summer. But Naomi, I don't know about you. I would love to keep some version of this going.
Yeah, sure. We can stream some games. Robert's always telling me to stream more stuff. I can't do his expert level design commentary, but I can play a really tedious game and force you to watch me grinding while I complain about the game and the design.
That might be fun if there was a version where we play some games and talk. So we'll figure something out.
All right, yeah. So we will see you around on Twitch. We will see you on May 21st for the show. I think both Frank and I are going to be acting as hosts at some point for some segments of the show. So please tune into that and help support all the amazing work being done by our graduating students. And we'll see
Please show up May 21st. What time? Do we have a time for that?
Yeah, we're starting at 2 p.m. and we're going to
May 21st, starting at 2 p.m.
There's going to be a lot of segments, though. We're going to publish a schedule of when, which various types of games are being played on that stream.
And we'll throw a link in the chat. That's more information, a link to the page where we're going to have information for that. But please show up, support the NYU Game Center. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you, Robert and Mirabai. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Frank and Naomi. Thanks for the discourse. Again, this was the last episode for spring 2020. The discourse might return in summer 2020, but we'll see what that looks like. In the meantime, we do have to end right now, unfortunately. Please join us on our NYU Game Center showcase date. Again, that is May 21st, 2020, 2 to 8 p.m. And lastly, I was your director and host. Well, not really hosting anymore. I was your behind-the-scenes OBS operator, Robert Yang. News co-host and news curation was by Naomi Clark. Graphics were by Winnie Song. And captioning was done by Mirabai Knight of Steno Knight Cart Services. Thanks, everyone, and maybe see you around in the summer, and hopefully see you around for our showcase. Bye. Have a good day, everyone.